I'm Polo, and I'm here to talk to you today about the Law School Case Briefing Manifesto. If you don't know me, I'm the person that created the 20 things you got to do to get A's in law school. Also, I'm responsible for Dean's Law Dictionary at ABN Study Partner, so I know a little bit about the law. Today, I want to ask you two basic questions before we start the lecture. Do you have that deep down feeling that something's just not right about law school? Do you think there's an easier and simpler way to learn the law? You ask 99.99% of the law students that question, and their answers are resounding, instantaneous. You betcha. Everything about law school is wrong. There's something just not right. And what they really want to know, what all law students you ask those two questions really want to know is, what can I do about it? How can I fix this? How do I make it all work so I go to law school and actually learn something and become successful in the legal profession? Well, today I'm going to talk to you about the nuts and bolts aspect of case briefing and show you more information on why the Socratic method will not work. I will also talk to you and introduce you to the M.A.D, the M.A.D, Memorize, Apply, and Dissertate system, which is proprietary to Study Partner. First, a word of caution. M.A.D's a system. You gotta know and learn the system first before you make any personal tweaks in it. Why is that? Many parts of the M.A.D system are important. Unless you follow them, you might be making changes in things that make the system work, and you'll have no idea how to determine if what you change makes things better or worse. Learn the system first. Once you learn it, you make a change and things get worse, you can backtrack and go with the normal system. If you make a change, a personal change that you need from the way you learn, then and things get better, guess what? You have the basis of knowing when it's working, when it's not. Okay? Law school is pretty simple if you have a strategy. So let's begin talking about case briefing. Law school case briefing. Learning and comprehending the law in law school. A prerequisite to this lecture is that you've got a copy of the Law School Manifesto. Read it, understand it. Read it again if you have to. Here is the link so you can register and get a free copy. It's kind of painless. Give us some information. We'll give you a free Foldy's Law Outline. We'll give you the free 20 things you need to know about law school before getting an A's. And we'll give you a free copy of the Law School Manifesto. That's how you get your copy. Go there, get your copy. Do not listen to this lecture without first going to the Law School Manifesto. So, here's the deal. You get your assignments, page 30 to 80. Have you ever read your casebook, and after about 20 minutes of reading, you just kind of feel, what happened? You know, you kind of wake up and all of a sudden you realize you started on page 30. You remember what's on page 31 and 32, but 32 to 45 is just a complete blank. And when you wake up, you cannot understand or even recall anything you just read. Do you have that problem? I had that problem. I don't know about you, but vast majority of law students I know have that problem. Okay? We're going to fix that. I'm going to show you how to fix it. M.A.D, Memorize, Apply, and Dissertate will change your life. It's a bold statement to make, but it's true, and here's why it's true. Because M.A.D represents a strategy for complex learning. It applies not only in law school, it applies to all complex learning in your life. You learn this skill and this strategy, and you will be able to learn 2, 3, 4 times faster than everyone else. You will be able to comprehend at levels that no one else even thinks possible. That's why M.A.D will change your life. It changed my life. It's going to change yours. So let's examine what's going on in law school. They impose their goals on you, which is the Socratic case briefing methodology. They want you to go out and read the case and then fill in the form, and somehow, some way out of that, you're going to learn and internalize the law. The general format they all take is, and this is the format we use in our own ROM law case briefs, the nature of the case, the facts, the issue, rule of law, holding, and legal analysis. That's the format we use. There's other formats. They're all the same. There's not a difference between any one of them, just other than what you prefer. You will get lectures in law school from the law school success people that they've employed these days. and you will get lectures online. People will go, what's the ultimate case briefing methodology? And oh, geez, they get into it. And you know what? It's all bovine scatology because it's worthless. Let me say it again. It's worthless. And we not only proved it to you in the Law School Manifesto, we're also going to throw additional wood on the fire to tell you how much more worthless it is. Now, doing the case briefs with the hype they throw around law school produces stress on law students. How do a lot of them alleviate that stress? They want to beat the system. So what do? The first thing they do, which they're taught to do in the internet world, is they want to score some free case briefs. So they go online and they start looking for free case briefs. Opportunistic. Remember Law School Manifesto? Opportunists fail. People with strategies always succeed. Looking for case briefs for free online is an absolute waste of time because the quality of the briefs are pathetic. Pathetic. They're absolutely terrible. You have to reach up to touch bottom on 99% of them. Some of you figured that out right away, and they'll purchase canned briefs. We agree with purchasing canned briefs because you want to beat the system. You don't want their system taking up your time. But the vast majority of people who purchase canned briefs are doing it to beat the Socratic system. They're not doing it to gain time to actually implement a strategy for learning the law. They're just playing the game. They're just thinking they're playing the game better because they beat it and they don't have to waste a lot of their time. Now, we sell canned briefs, and the reason we sell them is for the simple fact that we don't want students playing the Socratic game. So if you have our briefs and someone calls on you, you can spit them back out in class, and that saves you that effort. That saves you all that time playing that Socratic game so that you actually can spend all your time actually learning the law. There's the link right there in the lecture. You can download the ROM log. It's a Windows program. If you have Apple or Mac products, we have an online version. You can get that. You exchange time for money. That's the strategy. Exchanging time for money. So you pay a little bit of money, get a lot of time, okay? And you pay a little bit of money, and it gets you out of the Socratic case briefing nightmare, okay? Gives you all the time you need to implement a strategy for reading. So let's see what law students actually do. The first thing they do is they read those 30 to 80 pages, and the first thing that happens is their mind starts to wander. Godzilla and emo are eating them alive. That's why your mind starts to wander. They're improper reading. They're not reading with a strategy. They're reading for the Socratic response. They want to prepare for the Socratic response, so they want to put everything in the nature of how this organizational pattern of facts and issues and rule of law holding and legal analysis that has got nothing to do at all with learning the law. In fact, it's counterproductive to learning the law. And there they sit, remember the first 2 pages, maybe the first page if they're lucky, and then, you know, all of a sudden they're on page 45 and they're sitting there going, what did I just read? I have no idea. And they have to start all over again, and there it goes, on and on and on. They can't recall what they just read. Terrible, terrible, terrible situation to be in. It's going to cost you big time. Now, why is this happening? If you read the Law School Manifesto, you already understand about Godzilla and emo and about engaging the neocortex. Reading is an interaction between you and the printed text. Reading is an active process both physically and mentally. And what most people don't understand is reading for knowledge and true understanding is a skill. Hey, you want to read the romance novels, you want to read your favorite murder mysteries, okay? If you were hot on Harry Potter or whatever the deal is, you know, that's entertainment reading. That's completely different. This is reading for knowledge and true understanding. It's a skill. It requires a purpose, a strategy, and flexibility. What am I talking about? Well, to read effectively, you must focus and read with a purpose. To be a purposeful reader and to be successful at managing information, you must first decide why you are reading something, and to determine what you plan on doing with this information. To be a purposeful reader, you must ask, what do you hope to gain out of it? Now, in your case, their purpose is Socratic class preparation. Your purpose is to internalize and understand the law. So right away, at the very beginning, from the very purpose of the reading, you are counterproductive. They're spending their time on the Socratic thing is counterproductive to what you need to do, which is internalize and learn the law. Strategy, okay? Once you have a purpose in mind, you need to plan your approach to the information. Your approach will depend on your purpose. And again, their purpose, Socratic class, your purpose, internalization and understanding. Two completely different ways of reading for the same thing. One will get you in the top of your class, get you A's, and get you to be a good attorney. The other one will frustrate the living hell out of you. Okay? So you pick which one you want to do. Okay? And what's very interesting about our M.A.D methodologies is you can see the success in 2 weeks, and you'll become an expert in 6 months. And 2 weeks is not a whole long amount of time to put the faith and trust in what we're telling you will work. So put that in the back of your mind for a few minutes. Now, flexibility. Since you will have a different purpose every time you read, you will need to consistently adjust your strategy to meet that purpose. Now, here is more wood on the fire as to why the Socratic method does not work. This is scientific fact. You want to dispute it, I'll throw thousands and thousands of journals and studies and who knows what not, and doctorates after doctorate that'll tell you you're full of it, okay? Ideas precede the understanding of facts. That is an established fact. I'll say it again. Ideas precede the understanding of facts. Another reason why the Socratic method does not work? Socratic requires you to know the facts before you formulate the ideas. Not only does it play havoc with your evolutionary design on how your brain works, they want you to know the facts before you formulate ideas. What a waste of time. Do not waste your time on this myth that they have created, because fundamentally they're just too lazy, okay, to do law school the right way. Now, let's really talk about memory, thinking, and internalization. Reading involves sequential steps, multiple exposures. There's an overview, a preview, critical reading, and post-reading activities. You do it this way, you will sponsor memory, thinking, and internalization. First of all, overview. You look at the material, okay? Skim through them. Very rapid viewing of the material. Determine its structural elements. This case, we're doing consideration. So we look in the book. Where do we look first? We look at the table of contents, and we find that pages 30 through 80 are half the chapter on consideration, okay? And the topics covered are the bargain for exchange and inducement of current performance, and we have 5 cases. Okay? That's what they're going to talk about in that particular chapter. Okay? We got the first 50 pages, so our overview already helps us determine the concepts and general impressions. We might page through each area very quickly and look on the pages for the word consideration, inducement of current performance, bargain for exchange. Whatever it is we're looking for, we might skim through very quickly to find that. We'll find out that there's 5 cases. We'll find out what information, a little bit about the cases. Okay? So it's the overview, okay, is the purpose of your reading is then defined from the information you get from the overview of just paging through stuff to find out what it's about. So already we know we're going to talk about consideration, and already we know that there's 5 cases, and there are 3 on this, the bargain for exchange, and there's 2 on the inducement for performance. Preview. Pass through the materials faster than you would read them in order to determine the general thoughts and concepts presented in the document. Do this quickly. Don't get caught up in the details. Okay? Don't get caught up in reading. You need to find out what the general thoughts and concepts are. You could do this when you skim through something. You just have to discipline yourself to do it. It takes a little effort, takes a little work, all right? But this helps redefine the focus of your purpose and also helps you figure out the strategy you're going to use to actually get this information into your brain effectively and then internalize it. Now, at first look in the preview, if you find unfamiliar words, and you will in a lot of legal documents, what are you going to do? You find some Latin terms and things like that. You're going to grab Dean's Law Dictionary if you're following our stuff, and you're going to look it up and figure out what it means very quickly, okay? You're going to look up some of the key words they might use that you don't understand. They might have, some Latin term in there. You better go look it up and figure it out even before you start reading, okay? And you have to understand what it is that you're going to be going after, at which point you can begin critical reading, where you absorb facts and details. Now, this is the reading that most people do when they start on page 30 and then get self-hypnotized and wind up on page 45 and have no understanding. But they do it without doing the overview and the preview. They do it without understanding that reading is a strategy. You have to be purposeful, strategic, and flexible. Okay? But now we're reading, and we are trying to find out what a bargain for exchange is and what an inducement of current performance is. Okay? We want to find out how these cases relate to those two elements. Post-reading. Post-reading is about internalizing and recalling the information. Think about what you have read. Ask yourself, what did that mean? You have to create and add to your recall pattern. And we'll talk about that in a few seconds. Review your recall pattern and think through what you have learned. Has your purpose been satisfied? Can you answer the questions you had about the material? Revisit any areas you are still not fully comfortable with. And ideally, at this point, you can write and talk about the information in your own language. Okay, that's the post-reading. Now, this is part of the memory thinking internalization process you use to learn highly complex information, which is what the law is, because it's all idiomatic concepts. Okay? How does the M.A.D fit into that process? M.A.D is a blueprint for success. Memorization, okay, consideration. It's the bargain for exchange that induces current performance, offers detriment, and is binding. It can be pre-existing, illusory, nominal, or surrendering, or forbearing legal right. That's the short form definition. That's the one you use on most of your exams. Memorization gives you the purpose. I've already got a structure in my mind about consideration because I've memorized it or I started to memorize it. Actually, when you do your preview, what are you going to do? Or when you do your overview, what are you going to do? Oh, this is about consideration. I better go find something out about consideration before I read any of this stuff. I better look for a definition on consideration. I better look for some materials on consideration. And what's the first thing we do in the M.A.D method? The first thing we do is we look at the definition, which is in the outlines, and we give it right to you. We spoon feed it. Here it is. Memorize this definition. If you don't, you're an idiot. It's your problem if you don't memorize it. So you spend your first 20 minutes looking at consideration and starting to memorize it, starting to write it out, starting to talk it. Maybe you take some time and you go in the Dean's Law Dictionary and you start reading about consideration. This is even before you begin to read the case briefs. So now you understand something about consideration. You've got it in your mind. You got a definition that you just wrote out yourself, sitting right there in front of you, and now you know what the cases are about. They're going to tell you how you will take facts and apply them and figure out whether there's been a bargain for exchange or whether there's been an inducement of current performance. So guess what? You get the whole strategy for your entire reading right there. You get your whole strategy for internalization and recall. Everything's right there in front of you. You take a little bit of information in the beginning and you start the process. Memorization and asking the questions and overviewing this way engages the neocortex, keeps you in the neocortex zone. Okay? The application when you're reading makes you think about it. You're reading with a purpose and a strategy. Your dissertation in the M.A.D method or the recall also at the same time gives you that ability to internalize everything. Now, recall pattern for a case, recall pattern. Memory research has revealed that our brains are set up with many times more visual receptors than auditory. Therefore, the more visual we make information, the stronger the memory impression. What's one of the things you want to do to help you recall? They give you facts in a case. They talk about things that happen. You can make a little movie in your brain, a little picture in your brain that shows that event happening related to the facts they just gave you. Then you can append the rule of law to it or the application of the law to it, and that will dramatically improve your ability to recall that case and those facts. Okay? The recall pattern allows you to see reading as a process of identifying the information into a logical pattern of broad categories. Well, what's your logical pattern in broad categories? It's the definition you just started memorizing before you even read what was in the cases. You can branch out into subheadings or more detailed information as you go. And you can further divide and divide and divide, and more as the facts get more delineated and more specific to an area, you can append that area to that definition. Let's say the inducement of current performance things are only 2-page cases each. Well, geez, they're real easy to throw. Remember that fact pattern visually, okay? And then say, this is what an inducement of current performance is. No big deal, okay? So you've got the structure, you've got a blueprint already in your brain before you even start reading. You got a strategy for internalization. All you got to do is input the facts, visualize them, and then develop your recall pattern. Okay? The recall pattern starts developing for the first overview of what you're about to read. Okay? The preview of the material you will be reading will begin a recall pattern based on memorization you did of the base definition. A preview establishes what's most important information relevant to your purpose. Once the information is found, it's condensed into keywords, which strengthens your comprehension and retention. It is necessary to understand what you have read in order to condense it. Then you read for supporting facts, details, and additional information so you can make a visualization pattern, and then condense the new information into keywords and add them to the recall structure, connecting the lines on the recall pattern. This is all registering, retaining, recalling, and recognizing. We register more than we retain more than we can recall, and nearly half the time we cannot recognize whether our recall is accurate unless we plan and structure a recall pattern. You only record key information that will trigger your memory. This is how your memory works. M.A.D plays into exactly how your memory works, how you need to stay in the neocortex zone. And how do we handle the neocortex problem? That problem where you're reading and all of a sudden you self-hypnotize and you're drifting off? Well, the first part about the strategy for reading gets you out of there, but timing is also critical. Your best friend is a kitchen timer. 20 minutes. Now, some people tell you you can stay in the neocortex zone with training for 25, 30 minutes. We just say 20. You'll get longer as you go. We know a lot of people that can stay in the neocortex zone for 30, 40, 50 minutes at a time, okay, because they just do it properly all the time and they get so well versed at it, it's easy for them to stay in the highly critical zone for fast periods of time. Timing is critical. It's 20-minute increments. First 20 minutes, next 20 minutes. First 20 minutes, next 20 minutes. Break up the 20-minute periods with physical activity, whether it's you complete concentration for 20 minutes, the timer goes off, you completely stop, get up, vacuum your carpets, do something, clean the dishes, whatever, for 5 minutes, then come back into the game again and do it for another 20 minutes. It's all critical. This is all critical because if you've read the law school manifesto and you understand how you've got to keep Godzilla and emo off your ass, okay, the way you do that is by focusing very intently on the strategy you have for 20-minute increments. Like I said before too, that time frame will expand out as you go, okay? You'll very quickly in law school, you get 30 minutes really easy, okay? So that you'll be able to do this for 30-minute increments at a time. And what do? Well, your first 20-minute in an assignment is to quickly overview everything and say, oh, this is about consideration. let me take the other 18 minutes in this 20-minute increment, because I just figured out the assignment was about consideration, and let me learn something about consideration. Let me look at the definition in the Foldy's Law outlines, and let me start writing it out a couple times. Let me see if I can even say it to myself, okay? And let me go into Dean's Law Dictionary for the last 10 minutes and maybe read the first 4 or 5 or 6 or 7 definitions for consideration of the 30 that are there, just to find something out before I even start reading, okay? You understand how this works? And then you stop, you do something physical, and you start again. Your start again might be doing the preview. Okay, see how far you can get in the preview. So you're 20 minutes into the preview of the assignment, and you find out you previewed it in 10 minutes. You looked up 2 or 3 key Latin terms that were in the text of the cases, and you're going to spend the other 10 minutes. Maybe you're going to write out that definition again, and then you're going to come over and read maybe 5 or 6 or 7 more of the definitions or sub-definitions in Dean's Law Dictionary. And this is even before you even begin to read the first sentence of the case. Now you're ready for critical reading. You already know that the first 3 cases are going to talk about bargain for exchanges, and the last 2 cases are going to talk about inducement from current performance. Now you're reading because you want to create visual patterns to help you recall the information. You want to internalize that information into the structure that's already begun forming in your brain. So when you're done reading, and it might take you 2, maybe 3 20-minute patterns to get completely through all the reading, what's your last pattern going to be? Back to the basics, writing out the definition, visualizing the facts of each case, and figuring out this case tells me how to determine whether something's a bargain for exchange. This case tells me how someone induces current performance, and why if you can induce current performance, there cannot be consideration. Tells me all this stuff. Now you're thinking about it. Now you go back and you maybe write the definition out 2 or 3 times. Maybe you speak it. You visualize the facts of the case, and you still have 10 minutes left of that 20-minute period. And at that point, what are you going to do? You're going to go back into Dean's Law Dictionary and read all the information in Dean's Law Dictionary so that you can understand the stuff. That's why M.A.D. is a blueprint for success. Okay? It's a blueprint for success. You understand why the Socratic method is absolutely worthless? Why you shouldn't waste your time? So, the Socratic method does not work. Period. Gave you many reasons in the Law School Manifesto. We threw more wood on the fire in this lecture. The M.A.D. method will change your life. You'll learn faster, you'll get better grades, better jobs, you'll have the expert status, you'll have a strategic plan and a systems approach to life, which means professional success, and you'll save a whole ton of money in law school. Tons and tons of money. Tons and tons of time. You'll spend your time, you'll spend a lot of time learning and having true understanding of the law. So how do you get started? Just go to our website. You can, as a minimum, you can get an MP3 exam writing lecture, which is the exact roadmap in massive detail, 4.5-hour lecture that you listen to repeatedly many times, because it's a skill. And you can get our newsletter too with that, and helps reinforce many of the concepts over time. This is all skill learning. You don't listen to it once and think you got it all made. You go to the lecture by XYZ company that's going to teach you how to do your exam writing, or going to teach you how to learn the law, and you're going to listen to that lecture once in a 4 or 5 or 6 hour lecture period for a whole day. You listen to it once, you're lucky if you pick up 10% of what they have to convey to you. So listening to these lectures and this kind of stuff once is absolutely counterproductive. This is a skill. You need to listen to this stuff every 2 weeks until you're doing everything you're supposed to be doing to master the skills. That's our product that you can get. It's cheap. Don't confuse cheap with being effective and working. We keep it cheap because we don't want to rip off law students. We could easily sell this for $399, but we don't. We sell it for $69.95 because that's being fair to law students. Go to the website, buy it. We'll see you there. Have a good time. This is Paul Owen. Hope you enjoyed what I talked about. Thank you.